So picture this. I was a 14-year-old boy in high school, shy, quiet, reserved, and overweight. Starting in high school, I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. All throughout my school years, I never really been a part of a team or any sports team really, and I wanted to change that. And luckily, early into my freshman year of high school, a coach from Northern New York came by and gave a small presentation about what the program was and what it had to offer. And from there, I'd say I was pretty easily hooked. But now at the tryouts, they asked me to hop on the erg, take a few strokes. It was my first time ever on it, but I think I caught on pretty quickly. And the next steps from there were just to wait for a call back. And I got one a few days later, and I was so excited to be a part of a team for the very first time. But now I'd say about 3 weeks into the program, and we're asked to do our first ever 2K. I really had no idea what I was getting myself into or what to expect. I've heard from other athletes how challenging and hard a 2K can be, so going into it, I was pretty nervous, pretty scared, but also excited. I didn't know what a good score was, what a good time was, but I knew I wanted to do well. But I'm now on my erg, a million thoughts racing in my head, and I start. I feel like I'm off at a pretty good pace. I couldn't get the rate up no matter how hard I tried, but I knew I had some power to back myself up. But now about 1,300 meters in, and I'm starting to feel a whole lot of new sensations. My, my legs feel like they're about to explode. I'm panting, trying to catch my breath. I'm kind of like freaking out, losing it. And the final 500 meters was my breaking point. I said to myself, I can't do this. This is not for me. I'm done. So I just stopped. I'm there, fully strapped in, feeling completely defeated. And only seconds later, all my other coaches and teammates come behind me and start to yell, let's go, you're right there, you're so close, why are you stopping? I looked behind to see them all trying to cheer me on, and just the thought of disappointing them alone was enough for me to pick up my handle and continue, so I did. I used up all the power left in me with the only thought, finishing this 2K. I finish, not happy with how I just did. I take note of my time and I put my screen down. Now I stand up, legs all shaky, and I practically crawl my way back to the bathroom. And on the other side of the door were all the varsity boys cramped in. And the first thing they asked was, did anyone break 8? Now, I didn't know why they were asking or what it meant, but I knew I did, so I raised my hand, and suddenly they were all yelling, jumping, cheering, and just seemed genuinely happy for me. I was confused. I had never received that amount of support before. It was a completely new feeling for me, and I knew from that point on I wanted more of that. So I came the next day, I came the next week, the next month, and now fast forward 4 years, and I'm at my last ever regatta and New York State champs. It was a bittersweet moment. I had learned so much about myself, developed mentally, physically, gained so much more confidence all alongside my teammates and dear friends. And shortly after graduating, I'd say about 2 years later, I felt like I needed rowing to be a part of my life again. So I looked online to find an opening, and I start out in Queens. Shout out to Queens. Yeah, shout out to Queens. But this past year, I switched to Manhattan, where I'd be starting off with the novice girls instead. And I was really excited, one, because I'd get to coach where it all started for me, but two, because I'd also get to help lead a fresh bunch of kids for the very first time. It was amazing seeing our athletes go through our training plan and perform so well, make huge strides on the water week by week. It just made me really happy as a coach. But now, a couple months later, and we're all back at state champs. Our first race being the time trial. Now we gather the novice 8, we have our prep talk, and we send them off. Now I'm watching them finish their race on the live stream, really happy with how their strokes are looking. And once all the crews finish, I refresh the results, and I don't think I've ever smiled so big before. They did really, really well, granting themselves a spot in the grand final. Now, shortly afterwards, I make my way back to the return dock, both fists up in the air, just waiting for the A to come back. It was a really special moment. We had started off the day at a really high point. But now I'd say it's like later in the afternoon, it's time for part two, our final, the grand final. And this time around, I was really nervous. We gathered the girls one last time and we sent them off. And I was making sure I was not going to miss a single second of that live stream. So I pulled it up on my phone. I set it up on the back of our truck. And at this point, I'm huddled up with all of the other coaches and some other teammates, just waiting for the race to start. And as soon as it did, we're all jumping, screaming, yelling, just genuinely excited to see how this race turns out. Now, I'd say for the most part, we're in the pack, staying in second place for a majority of the race. So we're at a pretty good spot. We're now at the final 500 meters, the crew in first with the boat length lead. And in my head, I was like, okay, if the girls are sticking to the training plan, there should still be one more lift. I'm just waiting to see it happen. But now, fast forward, we're on the final 100 meters, and we're still kind of in that same position, and I'm like, okay, it's go time. It's like now or never. I'm just waiting, and only seconds later, something in the 8 just clicked, and stroke after stroke, they were just gaining a seat off the other crew. The announcers were yelling like, Row New York is on a charge, you're making moves, and it led to a photo finish, and I legit could not tell if the girls were able to pull off first place. I think are we going to show the video before?
Hard 3 seats up, 2 seats up. Row New York is on the charge.
But I get chills every time watching it.
And the novice girls 8. A photo finish.
But if you could have seen just seconds before, they were the crew in first had a bigger lead, and it just seemed so effortless and flawless. It was all just perfect. And even though they got second by less than half a second, we had sent them out there with a specific training plan, game plan, and they hit every single point. It was all amazing. Thank you. Yeah. And now just looking back to my 2K when I was a novice and all the support I received and how much I grew to that support, and now as a coach being able to give that back to this new group of athletes, I feel like I'm exactly where I want to be, feeling like wanting to be a part of something bigger than myself. I feel like I found that here at Row New York. Thank you.